I've had squatters in my property for the past 2 years. If you don't think this can happen to you, listen up, because here in LA, transients are rampant. 11 911 calls, LA Council's office got involved, supervising officer of local police got involved. We evicted them, and one of them starts living in a tent in front of my gate. He jumps my gate, tries to get into the house. This is just crazy. So it all started when I bought 2 properties pre-COVID, May of 2019. 2 duplexes side by side in LA. When I purchased them, I inherited the tenants. 2020, March comes along, COVID hits. Everyone at that time is worried about tenants. Are they gonna pay? Are they not gonna pay? I asked my tenant how he's doing, and he says he's moving to Arizona. Fine, no big deal. He was on a month-to-month lease. The problem was not this tenant, which I inherited. It was that he informed me upon leaving there's another subtenant in the house who I never approved or even knew about. Now, this guy was a pro squatter, and I realized pretty early on he wasn't going to pay rent. He had medical documents claiming he was sick from COVID and that if the sheriffs come to evict him, it might even give him a heart attack. But none of this really even mattered anyways because of the COVID eviction moratorium. The federal moratorium, which was nationwide around that time of COVID, made it so tenants didn't have to pay rent until 2022. Understood, things happen, we were in crisis. But this moratorium literally closed courts on all eviction cases, and it didn't matter what the reason was, which is wild. Then in LA, they extended the moratorium until 2023, which finally ended this year, February 1st. So just recently, we finally were able to get our case in front of a judge in court. Judge approved it and went to the sheriff's office to go to the eviction office to approve. So the day finally comes where the sheriff goes to evict this guy, but then we find out there's another guy squatting with him. While the sheriffs are now enforcing both of these guys out of the house, one I didn't even know about until now. I show up, there's this second squatter, this blonde guy hanging out, and the cop asks me, "Hey Sam, do you know this guy?" I said, "No, I've never seen this guy." This guy turns around and says, "Yes, you do. You know that I live here." What? And then he turns around and says, "Happy belated birthday, Sam." Wow, it really had been just my birthday. They probably saw from the court doc or he researched me and found out. I'm telling you, these guys are professional squatters. So a couple days after this eviction day, we went back to meet the guys there so they can have supervised time to remove their stuff. On this day when we arrived, the 2 squatters are fighting one another. They turn on one another. They're still not leaving my property. And then the blonde guy is using his car to block the other tenants because they share a driveway. Remember, I also own the house next door and do have tenants there too. Ones who follow the law and were also heavily inconvenienced by this whole situation. But it gets crazier. Wait. The cops arrive. The blonde guy starts telling the cops about how, "Hey, did you know that this guy was an MMA fighter?" What? I really was an MMA fighter. So as you can see, this guy does his homework. I said, "You have to leave." He says, "Sam, do you know where my phone is?" The cops force him to remove his car so the other squatter and his friends could leave and remove their truck. But as soon as all this is over and the cop leaves, blonde guy parks his car back in front of my driveway, starts taking all his junk out of the car back to the front of the house. Cop says, "Call sanitation, take the stuff, and we don't have time to babysit." So long story short, this second squatter guy never leaves. He parks in front of the driveway, scatters stuff in front of my gate, sets up a tent, brings new junk in addition to his current stuff he has there. When I go back to visit, he's still there on the street claiming this is his house. Now keep in mind, I knew he was gonna jump the gate. I'd already called my demo guys to board up the doors and windows, but they couldn't make it until the next morning after the day of removing their stuff. So as soon as we leave, he hops the fence and he's in the house. I called 911. Within these 2-week span of all this is happening, I probably called them 10 or more times. My demo guys were on the way, but he got in there first. I tell the cops he got evicted. They said, we'll ask him to leave, and then if he doesn't, then they would arrest him. Once he's on the sidewalk, they can't do anything. They say, if he comes back in again, let us know. So he's back out with his stuff on the street, but does not get arrested. Thankfully, the house gets boarded up a few hours later. Still, he won't leave. He's in front of the house, camping and living there for weeks, still trying to get back in the property. By now, I've been to the police station to speak to the police officer at the local station there. I contacted the LA councilman in the district to come. Police never did anything. We'll get back to you. We have your story. I'm like, how am I gonna ever get rid of this guy? Not to mention, remember, I have tenants next door who he's bothering. He's blocking the driveway with his car. His junk is all over the street. My tenants are complaining, why isn't this guy getting arrested? So now I go get a trespass order form. Once you have this sign on your gate, if people trespass, they can expect to be arrested. Get this, when sanitation came to pick up his stuff off the side of the road, he starts throwing it all back over the fence. Once it's back off public property, they can't take it. They leave, he hops the fence to go get his stuff. My other tenant caught it on camera, and finally, I eventually was able to get him arrested. Oof. I called 911, there's my trespass order. Here's a video image of him jumping the gate just now. Here's the eviction documents. So they finally arrest him and tell him you can't come back. He gets thrown into jail for 2 to 3 days, and then he comes back. Mind you, this has all happened in a span of 6 weeks. My next step, if he still doesn't leave, is that when we go to court, I have to tell the judge he still hasn't left and put a restraining order if he's within 1,000 feet of the property. Oh, and the other guy, remember, the original squatter, filed an appeal from the eviction. The homelessness and transient problem is absolutely out of control. And I really think this issue is not from transients themselves, it's a leadership issue having to do with the city. I even told this to the city council. It's a leadership issue. They're saying that the tent is their property and that's why they can't touch it. But they can come on your property with their property and they don't pay property taxes. So it really comes from up top how they set the law. This is what people do, what they've always done historically. They take advantage of it. More and more people are living on the streets. The city is not taking care of them. They're allowing them to come and camp in front of people's houses, businesses. They're protecting them, and the way they're responding to people like me is by saying, even though you're the one paying taxes and following the law, investing in our city, we're gonna protect these transients' rights more than we're gonna protect your rights. This is why a lot of investors are not investing in LA anymore. They're moving to friendlier cities that protect the landlord and hardworking taxpayers. So that's my story about how I've been attempting to deal with not one, but 2 squatters in my property here in LA. If you enjoyed, please like and share this video and subscribe to the channel. This is Sam Chivitchian with Secured Capital Lending. Hope to catch you on my next video, guys. Quick update, eventually the neighbors started water hosing the blonde guy and eventually he left. And now he lives 2 blocks up under the bridge.